Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. And today we got an amazing guest. I'm so super pumped for this one. You've seen this company all over the place because, man, I think Harford County votes you guys like number one multiple years in a row. You're Baltimore Best in the Baltimore Sun multiple years. And just when you hear roofing, it's Tar Heel Construction. And today I've got the president in here in the house today. So Joe Ayler, welcome to the TMA Connection, my friend.
Yes, Tim, thank you for having me. You know, guys like you is why we love doing business in Harford County.
Yeah, man.
You know, it's a community, and kudos to you and your brand, you know, and your network. So, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.
And I'm blown away by your network because it seems like almost every charity event is sponsored by Tar Heel Construction. And we're going to get to more into the community stuff a little bit later.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, you are such a presence, I guess, not only for your customer service and being known as a roofing company, but just somebody that has been so entrenched in helping charity in Harford County. And that small network of people are really, they make a huge difference, and you've been making that difference too. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm glad we get to cross collaborate today.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's give us a little bit of background about who you are before Tar Heel Construction ever came to be.
Uh-oh. So I'm a 97 graduate of C. Moulton Wright High School.
I'm sorry. Just kidding. That's the Bel Air teacher in me, Bel Air high school teacher.
You know, loved to socialize in high school.
Yeah.
You know, was a poor student. Mm-hmm. You know, was more worried about connecting with friends and, you know, looking for the next party, but you know, was disciplined enough to kind of get it done. And during my senior year in high school, did a co-op kind of program. I forget what I guess they call it dual enrollment these days, where my senior year in high school, I did half the year at C. Moulton Wright and did half the year at Harford Community College.
Yeah. Yep.
And I found myself getting C's and D's in the morning at C. Moulton Wright, and then was going over to the college in the afternoon and getting straight A's.
Interesting.
Because something with the college institution just triggered something in my brain where it just seemed
a little bit more serious.
I guess serious, or you know, I guess you're paying for it. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but no, I spent a year at Harford Community College, got enough credits to transfer to Salisbury University.
Okay. Yep.
And graduated in 2002 from Salisbury University with a degree in biology, a bachelor's of science.
Okay.
And you know, started down there with general studies and took anatomy and physiology class and was like, man, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of one of these things where it was like, you know, you close the eyes and, you know.
I can remember being back in that 18 to 22 range, like just completely like, I don't know what I want to do.
And you know, in high school, you have guidance counselors, at least when I went to school, they did. And it's really tough because to ask a young person, hey, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Mm-hmm. You're still forming an identity, you know, within yourself. You're still experiencing environmental, you know, situations that are going to help you form your view of the world, you know, that are going to have an impact on, you know, the forming of your personality, I think, outside of things that are inherent biologically that come down from, you know, genetics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the guidance counselor, it's tough on young people. But yeah, so general studies in Salisbury, and kind of just took that science class and was like, this is interesting, you know, because it's interesting because if you don't have any sort of generational professionalism in your family, my dad was a doctor, my grandfather was a doctor, I'm going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
If it's just, you know, if you don't have a pattern there, then it's like, how does somebody know what they like when they're 19 years old? I mean, you have things that you like to do, but to commit to, you know, something for a lifetime is a big decision. What do you want to do? Like, what do you want to major? It's like, well, I don't think I've experienced enough to know
Exactly. I think I have a theory that a lot of kids want to go into either nursing or teaching because those are the two occupations that they've seen throughout their childhood that they can relate themselves to.
That's right.
And maybe there's a great teacher that they had in the classroom and they want to emulate that teacher because they made an impact on them, which is, a good thing.
And I love that point because I can remember 4 or 5 teachers that had an impact on me. My first grade teacher, my third grade teacher. I had a high school English teacher that I really enjoyed, and then I had a college professor that I really, so it's interesting. These teachers are often underpaid and underappreciated, but they do have an impact on children, through their education. But back to Salisbury, right? So took a class, got interested in science. I dedicated myself to a biology degree. Graduated. I don't want to say by the skin of my teeth, but I wasn't shouting from the rooftops about my GPA.
Okay, you might have been to a couple parties at Salisbury, maybe.
And I loved Salisbury. Not only it's like this rite of passage or like this this kind of catalyst, thoroughfare, whatever you want to call it, to adulthood, where it was the first time where I was on my own. I had to hold a job. As a waiter at a restaurant, I had to pay rent. I had to pay myself phone bill. I had to make critical decisions about when to study, when to go out. Tuesday night, I'm chasing a girl that I really like. I know she's going to be at a party on Tuesday night, but I know I've got that chemistry exam on Wednesday morning. Critical decision.
Yeah, man.
Do you do both? Do you know what I'm saying? So I think that
you really failed that chemistry exam, didn't you?
God, that was, dude, organic chemistry. That's some tough stuff.
That's the real deal. Yeah.
But I think growing as an adult and learning to make, problem solve, not in an analytical intelligence, but problem solve in emotional intelligence, making critical decisions without the umbrella of your parents, right? Helping you make these decisions. So anyway, it just cut me off if I start to run on. But graduated 2002 and had a next door neighbor that actually went to Salisbury as well. She graduated a year before me, had a connection down at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. And she went on to a career in medicine, but moved to California. But on her way out, invited me into the lab, right, into a clinical research lab at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. We focused on Lou Gehrig's disease. It was a rodent research, clinical research facility.
Okay.
So she went on her way and went to the lab director and said, hey, my next door neighbor is actually graduating a year behind me with a science degree. I got into the lab and spent a couple years there doing research, doing the medical research for ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and was doing some really cool stuff, man. I was responsible for 2 microsurgeries in prepping specimens for stem cell injection, which I won't get into the long story. I was on a Joe Conroy podcast and got pretty detailed on some of the surgeries I was doing. And but fascinating research. I did a microsurgery called a laminectomy, where you actually remove a piece of vertebrae to expose the spinal cord, so the MD PhD could come in with a stem cell injection, and then we would euthanize the rat and then get cross sections of the spinal cord and inject dyes so we can see neural connectivity and stuff like that. And this was like in 2003 and 4, so it was pretty cool stuff. And then would get pregnant rats and then euthanize them, and then get embryonic rats and then pull out these tiny spinal cords, right? So we could inject the embryonic spinal cords into the larger rat specimen and kind of watch those neurons kind of reconnect and some of those connections to kind of get reestablished and stuff, which was pretty cool. So did that for a couple years, and then found myself continuing to be a guy in his early 20s, chasing girls, going out, socializing, staying out late and all that stuff. So ended up leaving the lab and calling a good buddy of mine. His name's Scott, and I called Scott. I went to high school with him, and he's still one of my best buddies today. I said, dude, I left the lab. I'm not doing the science thing anymore. I need money. What are you doing for work? He said, I'm working for a roofing company. You can start on Monday. You'll be cleaning up job site debris. that's how I got into roofing.
Wow.
So that's the short of it.
Well,
right?
I mean, you don't. A lot of times you see people's success for what it is today, but you really don't see how it kind of came to fruition.
Yeah.
And so something as small as job site cleanup after you worked in a biology lab, for researching ALS. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that about you. So
yeah, I mean, my mother kind of had that WTF moment, like, what the hell are you doing, Joe? You're telling me you're doing medical research at the most highly revered medical institution in the world, and you're telling me you left there and now you're doing roofing?
So did you leave because the pay wasn't you couldn't make the money that you needed to live your lifestyle, or
no?
It was just like, okay, been there, done that. It's time to do something new.
I don't know that I have the answer to that. I just found myself just not engaged.
Yeah.
I think, if depending on your spirituality, if you want to call it, God's plan, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, right? It just wasn't in my story. And I just found myself just wanting to leave the lab and just didn't find a passion and a desire to do any more,
got it,
science related work. So,
yeah.
That's kind of how I ended up in roofing.
So, and what year was that?
That was in 2005.
Okay.
When I left the lab, 2004, 2005. So spent like two or 3 years there in the lab.
Okay. So around 2014, Tar Heel Construction starts.
Yeah.
But what's that middle ground of, the person that's the cleaning up the job site to deciding to open your own roofing company?
Yeah, so that's kind of a bit of an understanding of the structure of subcontracting and contracting, which is common here in the Mid-Atlantic, at least in the exteriors, residential exteriors, right? You've got a contractor that typically holds a lot of the responsibilities of a front-facing business, admin, marketing, human resources, finance, invoicing, reporting, kind of all the things that you have to do to run a business, where the subcontractor just focuses on just performing the work, invoicing, and collecting the money. That's it. So we were a subcontractor for many years.
Yeah.
And, that was that break between like 2005 and 2012. Right? Okay. And then 2013 and 2014 were kind of like the year or two as we were kind of putting everything together to kind of, go to market with Tar Heel Construction Group in 2014. So, but between 2005 and 2012, we were a subcontractor. You drive down the street, you see
you guys are the guys that are doing the work.
Guys on the roof doing the work. And it was a good experience because, being in your early 20s, you had a variation of a work environment. Every house is different. You're in different parts of town. It's physically demanding work, so you're able to stay in shape. Not your traditional kind of office, environment there. So I mean, we had fun, man. It was just a group of guys. Just we were all friends and still are to this day. And we were, just on the roof, kind of hanging out, and installing. But then as we started to really sharpen our skills as a group, we started to become highly sought after by contractors. So we started to continue to be very busy. We were busy and stayed busy. And, ultimately there was a light bulb moment in 2011, where we took a job from a young contractor. And at that time, I was probably in my late 20s, probably right around 30 years old, 31 years old. Had been doing roofing for a couple of years, was in great shape. We were a fine-tuned machine, doing a roof every single day, 6 days a week, and didn't have a lack of opportunity. Took a job one day from a young contractor. We look down off the roof, we're on the roof loading the bundles, the crane, is up there, we're offloading the shingles, and here comes a guy walking up, and he was a newer contractor that we had been working for that we weren't familiar, at least I wasn't familiar with. So I look over to Scott, I said, "Who's that?" He goes, "Oh, that's so-and-so, he started a roofing company." I said, "That guy?" I said, "If that guy can do it, I can do it." Because we had a loose affiliation. So the young contractor wasn't a complete stranger. We had known him through a couple, 1 or 2 degrees of separation there.
Sure.
And that was the light bulb moment. I was like, man, I've been doing this for 7 years. I'm institutionally educated.
Yeah.
I've got a house, a wife. We were pregnant with my son at the time, so I'm questioning, internalizing. How long can I do this kind of work?
Well, it's so physically demanding too.
Yeah, for sure. And then we took that job, and I looked down. I said, man, that guy can do it. I think I'm smart enough to
take a risk. I mean, to make that jump, to take it to the next level. To
create something of my own, create a brand, get our own customers, and ultimately got tired of our good work crediting other contractors. But that's how it works. A lot of the big general contractors that build schools and restaurants and hospitals, they're a general contractor. They do all the, design work. It's a business.
Yeah, right.
And then they hire subcontractors to perform the work.
Right.
So it's just a layered, kind of, and some people don't understand, the difference. What's the difference between a contractor and a subcontractor? So
yeah.
But just the natural maturation from being a subcontractor to creating a brand and obtaining our own customers and becoming a contractor in 2014. Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly there are struggles to growing a business. What were some of the beginning struggle, or maybe what was your greatest struggle in the beginning? And then are there any struggles that you currently have?
Yeah, there's always struggles. I mean, not a lot, nothing really major. I think that I always tell people, I learned a lot from other contractors, not necessarily what to do, but what not to do. Mm-hmm. I think in growing a business, I think the focus has to be on the product and the service itself. Mm-hmm. And I think we were fortunate enough to have that kind of mindset in the beginning. Where we want to provide a good experience and we want to do a good job.
Yeah.
And we want to service the work. And if we mess up, which everybody does because nobody's perfect, you make it right.
Yeah.
And, and you lead with trust and authenticity and just what I call a no bullshit approach.
Okay.
But... And a lot of this stuff is about timing too. Like we just happened to come into the market at the right time. Mm-hmm. Not to get super detailed, but there was a lead generation company that's kind of fell by the wayside the last couple of years called Home Advisor. Mm-hmm. I think they're still right, but back in 2016, 2017. That was a big driver of getting leads, because a newer company that doesn't have a network and doesn't have any brand awareness or doesn't have a reputation, how do you get leads?
Right.
So we were able to come on to that Home Advisor platform early on, and it was a paid lead generation service, paid, and start to get some customers that were looking for local roofing contractors. Mm-hmm. And then one customer, turns into another, you create a raving fan and they create this kind of, this effect where you start to get, a lot of customers and word of mouth referrals and stuff like that. So that was a big driver to kind of get us off the ground, was to be able to have a dependable lead generation source. Mm-hmm. And then kind of we just let our character and the quality of our work kind of, help spread the word.
Right.
But no major challenges. I mean, I think it was just, mindset and commitment. It was tough in the beginning with two young, small kids and working 6 days a week and stuff like that. But like I told you, I think when I was speaking at the chamber, people talk about, work-life balance and stuff like that. But if you want to get something done, you're going to have to be out of balance there for a minute. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to have and still am, to have a supportive wife where she saw that we were building something and kind of, was able to.
Now, do you work alongside your wife?
No.
She has her own thing going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She wants nothing to do with it.
She don't want
Nah. Yeah.
Well, now that you've grown the business, how many people do you have working for you? What different roles has made it more manageable for you to have a successful business? Talk a little bit about that structure of the company.
Yeah, so it's 23 of us now, and we're what they call a W-2 1099 hybrid, right? So we have 23 W-2 employees, and then we've got a group of dedicated subcontractors, just like we were many years ago, that perform, the work, right? So if you see a group of, if you see a Tar Heel job being performed out in the community, it's done by a subcontractor, right? We call them dedicated or dedicated subcontractors. They've got the freedom to work for any contractor they want, but they choose to work for us because we treat them well, we pay them well, pay them on time, treat them like family. And so that's kind of how that works. But yeah, 23 employees, and yeah, as the business has grown, I mean, I think we've done a good job of listening to the business and adding pieces appropriately, and not being and this could sound counterintuitive, but not being reactive to the business. So if we're getting calls at the office and customers are complaining about not receiving their invoice on time, or they're not, whatever, they're continuously getting the answering machine right, or whatever the problem would be. I mean, that would tell me, hey, that we need another office admin. If our sales staff is coming in and they're overworked and they're running 6-7 appointments a day, and the customers are calling looking for their proposals and complaining, then hey, we need to add another sales staff.
Yeah.
So I think we've done a good job of listening to the business over the years and reacting, rather than, hiring and then hoping the market kind of reacts to our hire, whereas we react to the market.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, 23 of us, all through the departments, through production, through operations, the sales department. My wonderful sister-in-law manages our office and handles all of our, HR duties and admin responsibilities and stuff like that. Scott, the guy who was on the roof with me that one day.
He's still with you?
Yeah, he's our director of operations. So he handles, what I call the front of the house, the field operations. He directs all the field operations. And then another good buddy of mine is our sales lead. He handles the sales team. So yeah.
It's a full blown operation there. It's pretty cool. It's impressive,
And yeah, it's interesting because you're almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, you have to grow.
Yeah.
But then once you start to grow a business, your operational expenses grow, which means that your required revenues and sales need to grow to be able to reach that kind of, what we call a break-even point, and it just continues to grow. It continues to grow with inflation. And
right. Well, we've had this conversation before. And this is something that I've talked with other guests too. I love having these conversations because it's just like minds thinking. Like I'm trying to think about what you're saying and how I can relate that to my real estate team, But the one struggle or the one thought that just keeps playing on my mind is how big do I want to make this? How big do I want to create? What's the vision, or what's the outcome that I'm trying to look for, and how big do we grow this? Or sometimes there's just days where I love where we're at right now, To talk a little bit about that, like, in your business and in your growth, and you said you always got to be growing. Is there a point where it just gets to be too much, and you kind of put the brakes on it? Or is it just like, no, every year we want to get these numbers to increase and bring on more people and, put on new roofs, more roofs than we did the year before?
Yeah.
How do you guys handle that?
That's a tough one because I think just by human nature, I think we're built to grow and to move forward and to just strive to be better. Mm-hmm. But I think when you look at where you are in your life, is bigger better. I don't know if that's like a society thing with America, right? The big houses, the big cars, the big watches, the big, all the material
stuff. Because what you realize, and you hear it time and time again, is when you get those material things, they don't satisfy the emptiness that you're still feeling.
Right. Is bigger better. You see the minimalists, and you see the people that live off grid, right? Mm-hmm. Could they be happier, and are they happier than somebody that's surrounded by, material items, and money and stuff like that? But as far as business is concerned, yes. I mean, I think we're forced to grow with inflation. We have to grow, because if you're not pacing with inflation, then what's going to get squeezed is your profits. And then you look at the business and say, well, hey, we're a for-profit construction company, but who's to determine how profitable we should be?
Yeah. How do you who sets that standard or measure?
Right. Who sets that standard? Right. Yeah. So I believe in these economic cycles, at least in the construction industry, in some economic cycles, certain levels of profitability might be acceptable. In other economic cycles, you might have to understand you're going to have to subject yourself to lesser profits in order to continue to, acquire market share.
Right.
And more market shares, more brand awareness, and more word of mouth referrals. So it's this cat and mouse game with profitability and market share, and how big, because another thing, at least for our businesses, is if we want to get bigger, we got to understand that at least in this 50-mile radius that we operate, there's a finite number of homes.
Right.
So then you get into data and stuff like that. If we want to get to X dollar revenue, will that goal sustain itself within this 50-mile radius? And then you start getting into growth, and then you ask that question, well, do we want to grow?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you're not growing, you say you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
And then you get into some tough questions. But just kind of internalizing that can be interesting.
It's a constant conversation that I have with myself every day.
Yes.
Yeah. You talk that there's a limited amount of roofs out there, and certainly there's a lot of other roofing companies that are in our area as well. Without dogging or trashing anybody else, because I never believe in that, what do you feel separates Tar Heel as being this number one brand that has been voted number one, with Harford County, Best of Harford, Best of Baltimore Sun? Like, what is that is really separating you guys?
Predictability and consistent accountability. We've got a proven track record to eliminate all the stigma and all the stereotypes that you get from roofing and exteriors contractors. We provide a good experience. We provide peace of mind. You don't want to take a gamble with putting your roof on.
Right. Yeah.
Not your roof.
Yeah.
You can go to Target. What I always say, you can go to Target, and if you want to go with the cheaper blender, you can always return it. You can't return your roof, dude.
Yeah.
And it's an expensive element that protects your home.
Yeah.
Protects your home.
It's like the skin of your body. It's the first layer of defense.
That's right. And years ago, when we first got into the industry, we didn't think that way because we were, young, and I'd like to think I got a little bit of wisdom as I've gotten older, but we're just roofers, man. How could we make a difference in our community? We're the trickle down, trade, where it's like if you're not, a doctor, lawyer, or a nurse, or a school teacher, whatever. If you want to look at it, then if you're not doing any of those things, you can always do landscaping or drywall work or roofing.
Yeah.
But we've learned over the years to appreciate the roofing trade. It's a roof over your head.
Yeah,
and it's important because it's protecting your home.
You're personalizing it. Yeah. You're not so much focused on how much money you can make off a roof. You're truly personalizing how that is affecting the family. That basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that basic shelter is what you guys are focusing on.
That's right, and not necessarily focusing on what we're doing. It's what experience are you going to eliminate by using us? It's what I said earlier about learning what to do, but learning what not to do.
Right.
These are the things that you are not going to experience with Tar Heel. You're not going to experience lack of communication. You're not going to experience accountability and timeliness. You're not going to experience a dirty job site. You're not going to experience unpredictability. Things like that.
Well, it's the experience over time and the quality that you guys are providing. How do you drill that into the people that work for Tar Heel and the subcontractors that are doing the work? what are the expectations and the standards that you're providing to your people so that the customer has the ultimate experience?
That's right. And understanding that people don't want to spend a lot of time with us. Mm-hmm. You know, people don't want to spend a lot of time with their roofer.
Right.
They want their roofer to come in, put a quality roof on their house, be there when they need them, but then leave the next day like they were never there.
Right.
We're done. Call me if you need me.
Yeah.
And move on with your life.
Right. Now, people are getting a roof every 25, 30 years, maybe.
That's right.
You know, do you stay in contact with the people that you've done work for? Like in real estate, you know, we have client, you know, it's all about relationships, and it's all about who you know. You know, it's about referrals. You know, it's probably the number one marketing source. Are you guys following up over the years? Do you do things like that where you're still connecting with people, or is it like, no, we put on the roof, we did a damn good job, and you know, you probably won't hear from us again?
No, I mean, we don't do the traditional kind of. We've thought about doing that. Hey, you know, 1 year after the roof is installed, let's send a postcard with an aerial image of the house. Congratulations on the 1 year anniversary of your roof. You know, but then the idea is easy until you start doing 1,500 to 2,000 roofs a year, and then that follow up becomes a whole expense and responsibility.
Right.
And then you couple that with, you know, some of these privacy issues, right?
Okay.
Why are you sending? How'd you get an image of my roof? You know, it's Google Earth. It's all public, but we get into stuff like that. So we do it by staying relevant in our community. Yeah. What we call community marketing. Okay. By attending local events, supporting youth sports programs, by sponsoring the 4th of July parade, by giving to the nonprofit community. That's how we reconnect with them, staying in front of our market and our community by giving back to it.
Yeah. In our intro, we talked about the community brand that you guys have, and you do put your names and put sponsorships on a lot of these events. Are there charities, not saying that one is more important than the other, but is there one that you get really excited about more than anything else?
I mean, not particularly. I mean, we like to give to the hospital and the EMS folks, and we love to support education, because I personally feel a lot of those are, I don't want to say underappreciated, but you don't appreciate a hospital until you need it. You know, and you don't appreciate a firefighter or an EMS until your house is burning down. Yeah. But no, we don't. We typically we cast a wide net. You know, there's
is that budgeted? Like, do you guys have a number that you're like, okay, this is where we have to...
For sure. And I'll give you a little origin story. But yes, it had to be budgeted, you know, because years ago when I decided that, you know, we really wanted to make an impact, you know, because our mission statement is to make a positive impact in the communities we serve while offering exceptional services in roofing and exteriors. Simply put.
Love that.
You know, I had a mission statement, a vision statement, a customer promise years ago. We just simplified it to that. Yeah. Make a positive impact in the communities. Exceptional services in roofing and exteriors. If you're checking both of those boxes, man, then we're making it happen.
We're doing good things.
But yes, it had to be structured, because when our identity as a company started to change from a roofing contractor to a community business that was philanthropically centered or philanthropically centered, right? Community focused. We had to structure the budget, because once you identify yourself as a giving company, then there's so many good opportunities to give. Right. I mean, they're countless here in Harford County.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of started years ago with Upper Chesapeake, right? They used to have this thing called the Red Pump Ball that they don't have anymore. They've replaced it with another event. But someone reached out, and there was a black tie event at the Richland Ballroom. Okay. And it supported a cardiovascular unit within the hospital. And I thought to myself, hey, what a good way to get my leadership team out and their spouses out to a nice black tie event,
Yeah.
A little bit of team building, a little bit of culture. We get to give back. We get a little bit of visibility within our community as a, because they put your, they put your company name up. These are the, donors and sponsors and stuff like that. And that was kind of where it started. Where it was like, okay, so we can brand our company as a likable, trustworthy company that gives back to the community while making my team feel good, and while giving them a great night out to reward them for their hard work, and furthermore making and encouraging them and encouraging pride to work for Tar Heel. Our teams, they're proud to work for the company because we've got such a good reputation. We give back to the community. We provide a good experience, and they can be proud to work there. So that's kind of where it all started. And it just grew from there. It started with us just kind of sponsoring a couple events, and then it kind of became part of our identity because people like to do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Right.
And
exactly.
what better way to create likability and trust and to give back to the community that gave so much to me and you growing up right here and running the streets and, growing up in this community.
Yeah. Yeah. You can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want.
That's right.
That's Zig Ziglar. And, that's one of a couple quotes that I try to live by as much as possible because I genuinely feel like if you're giving without the expectation of receiving, like trying to say, well, if I do this, then I will get this in return, and just give. It comes back. It comes back.
It does.
Yeah. And you talk about that reputation and that brand within the community. That's the way to do it. I think, and you guys have mastered that. That's something that I'm looking to grow a little bit better and more with my real estate team.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I mean, it was a marketing strategy in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was a strategy. Hey, what are other? How can we be different?
Yeah.
What can everybody? We can send the direct mail. We can run billboards but how can we make an impact? How can we be different? How can we promote our business in a different way? And it was validated many years later, not 100% validation, but I remember just a quick story. We were looking to hire another salesperson, and this particular individual who's still on the team today, he's been with me a couple of years. Great guy, great family. And he came in and was very careful with choosing his next employer. We had several layers of interviews and negotiations and kind of all that stuff. And he was, I got to check on my wife. All right, okay, this sounds good. Let me talk to the wife, So him and his wife had obviously have a close relationship, and they made the decision together. So long story short, he ended up coming on the team and being wildly productive. He's been an awesome part of the team. But I remember right after he was hired, we get hoodies and swag and shirts and all that stuff. So I guess his wife had dug out one of our sweatshirts or something and wore it, to Target. Okay. And was in line during Christmas time, and she got a tap on the shoulder. And she says, "Do you work for Tar Heel?" And she said, and she says, "No." She told me this story. I told it at our Christmas party. She says, "No, I don't, but my husband does." And the lady looks at her and says, "That's a good company you work for. Those are good people." It still gives me goosebumps.
That's awesome.
And that was that kind of validation where they took their time choosing employment at Tar Heel Construction Group, and then for her to pull me aside at the Christmas party, and tell me that story. And I immediately, altered my Christmas speech and, ad-libbed that kind of piece in there. Because that was really cool to say, hey, we really want to make sure this is the right company that we're choosing as a family. And then for just a few weeks later to get that tap from a complete stranger in line at Target and say, hey, those are good people.
Yeah.
That was special.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I would only aspire to have that kind of name when it comes to real estate. It's just like, those are good people,
Yes.
and when we've brought on different people on the team, it's been all about, not only is this a good fit for our culture, but is it also a good fit for the image that we want to project towards, out there, in the real estate world.
When you live by those values, and that's what makes sales easy, is when you really believe in the company and the product.
Yeah.
You're not really selling.
Yeah. It's like magnetic marketing.
And that's what
you're not going out there and putting flyers in mailboxes, or like Tar Heel Construction Group is the name that people will equate with positivity and generosity,
That's
community involvement, and good quality work and good product and good service.
And you'll just like you do with your team and we do with our team. When you really buy in, and you start living by those values and standards, and like you said, to use the word magnetism and momentum, you'll start to attract similar people.
Right.
So we don't really do a lot of job. If we look, almost every single person that we've added onto the team has come from a friend of a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
That is looking to be a part of a group of good people,
like-minded
people. We don't get a lot of we get a lot of like-minded candidates that want to work for us, and that's been special too. We just made a hire a couple months back. Just a good dude, just a good guy.
Yeah,
a good family man, good values. Doesn't need a lot of direction because we really promote autonomy. As long as it's serving our mission, as long as we're creating a good experience for the customer and we're putting on a good roof, it's really simple.
Yeah.
It's real simple.
Have you had any duds?
No, of course.
Yeah.
As far as
it's hiring. Yeah. Like when is there a process where you have to get multiple approvals? Like in the coming weeks, we're going to be announcing that we brought on a new agent onto our team. And really, I felt it was important that I not only sit down with her, but that the team sits down with her separately with me out of the room, because ultimately I don't want to F up what we currently have right now.
Yeah.
If that dud comes on, is it like, okay, we got to, do you give it a certain amount of time before you pull the trigger and say, I'm sorry, this is probably not a right fit for you? Or do you how does that all play out?
Well, I mean, the old saying, what is it? Hire slow and fire quick.
Yeah.
And I think that the moment you start thinking about letting somebody go is the moment that you let them go.
Gotcha.
If you're even thinking about it.
Right. Shouldn't even be a thought if it's the good fit.
And in our strategic plan a couple years ago, we implemented this about 2 years ago. We call it must-have characteristics. And when I bring in the leadership team, this is part of our evaluation process for all of our employees. It's must-have characteristics. There's 7 of them. I'm not going to, for the sake of time, not name them off, but you got to hit those kind of qualities and characteristics. Whether it's a team player, all in, have fun. Use your set of unique skills to work towards a positive customer experience.
Yeah.
Accountability, trustworthiness. So yeah, we've gotten some duds, for sure, but I wouldn't say duds, whether it's
just not a good fit.
Just not a good fit.
Yeah.
Just not a good fit.
Just a great culture to have, to have that so ingrained and established in the mission statement that you were talking about before, and everybody, being behind that mission statement and getting everybody on board in the same vision of what you're trying to accomplish is pretty special.
There's also a lot of minutia behind that too, as far as compensation packages and incentives and growth schedules and professional growth and all that stuff, and that leans back to the business side of things, and that inflationary, operating expenses are always increasing, always. But what's not increasing is the receptiveness of the consumer to pay more for the roof. Yeah. And what gets squeezed is the profits. Right. And then we come back to our point before. What is the standard? What is the standard for a profit for a residential construction company? In some economic cycles, it could be X%.
Yeah.
And others, right, between 2010 and 2020, where things were just I think people were enjoying higher profits. But then in this economic cycle, post COVID, with what's going on in the world right now, maybe we need to understand, and we might be a little less profitable, but it's all for longevity and sustainability and
playing the long game. Yeah.
Playing the long game.
Yeah. Wow. Where is Tar Heel going? What's the vision for the next year to 5-10 years? Where do you want to take this?
Just upward, slow and steady.
Yeah.
Upward trajectory.
Yeah.
Get better every day.
Yeah.
Get better every day. Play the long game.
I love it.
And play the long game. We're not going to get, we're not going to get over our skis or get too ambitious with any, overreaching growth, attempts or anything like that. It's just slow and steady. Just serve our community, put on good roofs, keep an eye on the market, because we're blessed to be in a needs-based industry, which promotes sustainability for us. It doesn't matter if the price of diesel is $6 a gallon, or if what Trump's saying, or what's going on in China, or what's going on with local politics, or whatever it is. If your roof's leaking, you got to get it done.
Right.
Whereas, other industries, that tend to be more wants-based, whether it's a finished basement or a hot tub or a pool or whatever. So those are kind of luxury, that's something that I want.
Yours is essential.
You need a roof, right?
Yeah.
So that helps as well. But a lot of things to look at, that's why I'm blessed to have Scott, what I call in the front of the house. I like to use a lot of, restaurant analogies, because that's just something that kind of, that I feel is appropriate. When you look at a restaurant, you've got the individuals that are actually, your patrons that are enjoying the food. You've got your front of the house guy that makes sure everything is, operating the right way. And then you've got, your kitchen staff, your back of the house. And then above the kitchen, you've got your offices, right? So it's more than just, the plate of food and the experience and the atmosphere that you're getting out on the floor. There's many layers, behind it, all the way to the kitchen, to the vendors, to the farmers that grow the food. There's a whole supply chain there. So
wow. Well, you've certainly grown a successful business, but I got to ask too, more on the personal side. You're a father, got 2 kids, you're married.
Yeah.
What strategies or things that you're doing to make sure that you are still present as a father and as a husband while putting in all these hours?
Yeah, it's tough as we've grown the business, because I was so used to, on one hand, I appreciate the fact that, when I called Scott that one day and said, hey, you can start cleaning up job site debris. I went from cleaning up job site debris to learning how to, install the product, to learning how to manage people, to learning how to manage, contractors and sourcing work, quality assurance, invoicing, we learned all that as a subcontractor. But as you grow a business, and what they say, as far as, delegate and elevate. So you hire. So it was kind of a little bit of a humbling experience as you grow and as you hire people to perform these responsibilities within your company. And then you get to a point where you've delegated a lot off, and then you kind of think to yourself, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
Where you walk into the meetings and your team looks at you and says, hey, Joe, we got this. What are you doing here?
Right.
Like, oh, okay. Am I useless now in my own company? But so that's kind of a tough dichotomy, but to back to your question, that being able to delegate and grow has given me more time to focus on, fatherhood and and being a good husband, because, one of the sayings that I have, I got a couple of sayings on my board, and one of them is healthy leader, healthy team. And that means healthy in all aspects of my life, not just spirituality, fitness, finance, my family, my friends, being as healthy as I can.
Yeah.
Because I think when everything rolls downhill for me.
Yeah. Right.
Everything.
Right.
Does.
Yep.
Balance, imbalance, whatever mood, whether you're healthy on whatever it is. So I think it's just understanding that time is finite.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah.
And understanding that I think when you're gone, that you can't take you can't take Tar Heel or any of the material stuff with you.
Right.
And the people that are going to be at your bedside is going to be your family. Your immediate family.
Yeah. And Scott.
And you, maybe.
And maybe me. Shooting a podcast.
What the hell's Tim Markland doing here? Who the hell's that guy over in the corner?
That guy, Drew, why is he setting up microphones?
But I think as you, I'm 46, and I think as you get older, the things that you want, the things that I wanted when I was 30, I didn't want when I was 35, and my view on life and my view on myself wasn't the same when I was 35, when I was 40. I think it's like they come in like these 5-year batches.
Yeah.
And I think just in this season of my life, my son's 13, my daughter's 11. I've been with my wife 18 years, and those are the things that are the most important to me.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
And my wife had come to me, and I've told this story a couple of times, and I don't think she'd mind me saying it because I've already said it a bunch of times. But she came to me, and she said, Joe, the business has been number one for so many years. I'm ready to be number one. So that kind of hit home, and not like, I mean, I don't want to say, she was number two or anything like that, or, but that was like, hey, like, this is something, I want to continue to grow my relationship with her.
Yeah.
My kids are 13 and 11 here, when they're 16, 17 years old, they're driving, they're exploring things in their life. I might not be, I don't want to say they're number one, but
yep.
I might not be the top priority. I'll always be there, and we'll always have that relationship. But I think that kind of awareness, I think is important.
It's so important
when you age, to really focus on, like you said, the long term.
Right.
That way, when and I've been using this one a lot, short term, not that this is painful, but the idea of short term pain for long term gain. Focus on looking back, and whether I'm 70 or 80 years old, I can look back when I was 40 and say that was a good decision.
Yeah.
No regrets kind of, kind of action. I think that starts with awareness. I think that might be a little bit of an overplayed term, but I think it's just,
well, it's called memento mori, which is a Stoic term that means remember that you are going to die. And if you can take that not as a morbid thought, but as to a way to improve your life today and truly appreciate where you are right now versus what could become, focus on today. Yeah. And making it the best day that you can possibly make it.
Because in the future, you're going to look back and you're going to say, man, I'm glad I did that.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm glad that, like, something small, like I mean, just yesterday, it was 2 days ago, right? So I get home from work, and my son is into like we're doing aquariums and that and stuff like that. Right? So I get in from work, and I really wanted to go in the garage and get a workout and hit the sauna and kind of work on my fitness in the garage and have a couple minutes to myself. But I had this opportunity to go down and build this stand. It's like a little like hutch like stand that an aquarium sits on. And I thought to myself, man, there was a moment where I thought to myself, right? I paused. Can I give up this hour hour and a half to myself.
Yeah.
And go down and spend some time in the basement with my son building this piece of furniture to put his aquarium on. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what, I think I'm going to go, and we had a nice hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm building it. All right, I need this piece. I need that piece. Give me this bit. I need the drill.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
So I probably a long-winded answer on that one, but I think it's just awareness and just figuring out that stuff's going to make you happy. But then on the flip side of that, with the business, ultimately what's driving me these days, and I think what drives a lot of older men is the fear of losing what you've built. Mm-hmm. If I take my foot off of the accelerators, is somebody going to catch me? Yeah. Is there going to be a younger version of Joe Ayler that's going to be on my ass?
Interesting.
It's my responsibility, not to be overconfident or anything, but Tar Heel, I consider to be the authority in the roofing and exterior space. Mm-hmm. And we have a large majority of the market share for a reason. Yeah. But it's my responsibility, just like the King of the Hill that you played when you were a kid. You're on top of the hill, and everybody that tries to climb up that hill, you put their foot right on their face, and you push them right back down.
But then you always have the pressure of having that target on your back when you're in that number one slot.
And you say, I'll give you the King of the Hill when my mom calls me in for dinner. She ain't called me. The street lights haven't come on yet. So,
for me, I don't know. I don't know if being number one drives me. Like, I almost feel, especially in this area of real estate, there's so many real estate agents in this area, and there's a lot of really good real estate agents in the area. And there's some people that made it really big. There's some people that are just happy with a few transactions a year. And I feel like I have found that balance, but I don't necessarily worry about too much about either the pursuit of being number one or somebody beating me out. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of.
But to finish that, because now this just popped into my head. You did say taking the foot off the accelerator. Like, I feel like if I take the foot off the accelerator, then all of a sudden everything slows down, and that's my biggest fear. Is that we're busy right now, and that's a good thing, but when nothing's going on is when I really start to freak out.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, were you born to not be number one?
I almost compare myself to who. I feel like I need to be better for myself every day.
Yeah, better than you were yesterday.
Better than I was yesterday, but not to say that I need to be better than somebody else.
You just need to be number one in your mind.
In my mind,
Are you giving the best?
Am I giving my best effort?
Markland?
Yeah, and for the people that are most closest to me, my real estate team, my family, the people that mean the most.
And you think to yourself, if I think to myself, I'm going to be the best version of myself, and my effort and my level of effort is different. You can say you're number one, I'm number one. Mm-hmm. But the effort,
I know that I'm number one.
And what'd you say? What was
it? But I know that I'm really number one.
But my idea and mindset and effort to be number one could be different than yours. Mm-hmm. You get up and you could do a routine, and your routine could be twice as strenuous as mine.
Right.
You could get up at 6 a.m. You could, run 3 miles. You could, be healthier. You could be more committed. You could be stronger, and that could be your number one. And my number one could just be getting out of bed and just going to,
Yeah.
So I think it's subjective to each person. Mm-hmm. But to double back on what you were just saying about, about the real estate, and so many real estate agents is what we found. And there's a lot of roofers, and there's a lot of roofing and siding guys, mm-hmm. But we found over the years that a lot of these people really aren't buying the roof. I would say, I wouldn't be able to get an exact number. I would say 9 out of 10 people, they don't want to know about what the shingle's made of,
right? What
the wind rating is, mm-hmm. How many nails are in the shingle,
yeah.
What are the dimensions of the flashing components, they're buying the sales. They're buying Tim Markland.
Yeah.
They're buying the salesperson. They're buying the company.
Yeah.
A lot of our customers, does the roof look good? Mm-hmm. Is it going to last? And is it going to leak?
Right. Yep.
It's going to last. It doesn't leak. It looks good.
Yeah. But they need to know you, like you, and trust you in order to get that
because trust is a big thing, man. And I've learned over the years that trust is, telling the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
I mean, tell the truth, because if you tell, I get so many, I've started doing this, like, not that we never didn't tell the truth, but I would always try to complicate problem solving in our company.
Yeah.
Where nowadays, someone brings something to me, tell the truth.
Yeah.
We had, this was 3 days ago. Someone, we got a customer that wants us to completely rewrite our terms and conditions. Whether the person's an engineer or a lawyer, and the salesperson did not feel comfortable with the customer. What should I say? What should I say? They all these large language models are so popular these days. We get a response from an email. He puts it into a large language model and says, how do I respond to this? So he sends it to me. I read it. I'm like, dude, just tell the truth, dude.
Yeah. Just
tell the truth. And if it comes back on you, then fine.
Right.
You told the truth.
Yeah.
So it's those things that have helped me, that have helped me grow as an individual, as a leader. And it sucks for the youth, because these things, you don't realize this stuff until you get older.
Yep. We all get the education through experience.
Not that young people, don't tell the truth, but
no.
Just accountability and just the like in contracting, really, and in real estate too. I mean, just the core stuff, dude. Just
right.
Tell the truth.
Yep.
Be authentic.
Yep.
Don't bullshit people.
Right.
And yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's finish this podcast off with the Fast Five.
Uh-oh.
All right. Going to ask you 5 questions. First thing that pops in your head is what I want you to answer with. You ready?
Let's do it.
Quote that you live by.
Walk softly and carry a big stick.
Love it. Love it. If you were going to take your wife out to a restaurant tonight, where would you go? Date night.
Where have we been going lately? She's super picky on where she goes around here. Probably Barrett's on the Pike.
Okay.
We really like their clam and or corn and crab chowder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good spot.
Stuff. Good stuff. If you weren't a roofer, what would you want to be?
Now?
Yeah.
A life coach.
Okay. I could see that.
My younger self would be
what was
like,
that?
What in the hell? Are you serious,
right.
dude?
Life coach? What? Yeah, I love it. No, that's good. The first book that pops in your head that has made the biggest difference in your life.
Oh, God.
Outside of the Bible.
Oh, man. That's a tough one. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Dale or Andrew?
Carnegie.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Probably a little bit of a generic one, but that's... Yeah, I'd say that was a good one.
An intriguing person in our community that I need to meet and have a podcast with.
Oh, wow. Paul Majewski.
Paul Majewski. I don't know him.
Paul Majewski from Ian's Chesapeake Shredding and Bumble Junk.
Okay.
Yeah, really, really good guy, likable guy, has a very interesting approach to life. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to maybe you can make that connection for me.
Great,
I would appreciate
great guy, great family man, runs a great business, and has a solid outlook on life.
Yeah. I knew this conversation was going to be good.
Yeah.
Just for knowing you from the chamber group.
Yeah. Probably could have went. These things, I think they're too short.
I know. It's a great conversation.
I love the Rogan platform because he can do some 2-3 hour sessions.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tim, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man.
And
this has been awesome. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If people want to connect with Tar Heel Construction, they need a roof. Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, just a simple Google search, Tar Heel Construction Group, tarheelconstructiongroup.com, 410-638-7021, roofing, siding, gutters, solar, and ready to serve the community.
Hey, you know where to go for your next roof. Please follow Tar Heel Construction too. They got some good social media going on. You can follow us as well on Facebook, Instagram at the Markland Advantage. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Audible, all the podcast platforms. And if you're listening to this on the podcast platform, you can watch us on YouTube. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button, man. We're trying to grow the channel.
Let's do it.
So, man, Joe Ayler, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man. Until next time, folks, live your life to the fullest, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Did you like this episode of the TMA Connection? Well, you might want to check this one out right here. Go ahead, click it.